I am a multi-millionaire.
Genuinely.
I can't lie, guys. The last thing I was expecting on my 2026 bingo card was Jidion to set his reputation on fire in less than a month. If you've been unemployed recently, you may have heard Jidion got arrested during a live stream where he was trying to help his friend get his crazy Uncle Joe out from squatting in his grandma's house. To put it simply, for how he went from dealing with a squatter to getting arrested, the crazy Joe left the home, but because he needed more content to make more money, Jidion was trying to locate the squatter's whereabouts. He then proceeds to start wandering around the town, walking back and forth into various gas stations or fast food restaurants where he talks very loudly, has that annoying text-to-speech donation bot on, and almost borderline harasses employees there. Like they have nothing to do with Joe or all this. Like, this is basically a terrorist attack on wages. So then when Joe is back at the McDonald's, police in front of the building warn Jidion that the establishment does not want him here at the moment, mainly because he kept going in and out of there, terrorizing the workers, like yelling, "Oh my god, where's the Joe at?" or whatever. Instead of just moving on, Jidion starts arguing out loud with the cops, which led to his arrest. Now, it's already kind of bad enough Jidion is basically being a hypocrite in terms of respecting property rights, because he's not okay with a crazy squatter on an old lady's own home. Yeah, he's okay with trying to trespass the property of a restaurant who doesn't like annoying people. What's worse is Jidion ended up getting some very young fans involved. He asked some of his Broccoli Kid fans who are out and about on the streets to be deployed and search for the squatter, even though this squatter is notorious for being extremely aggressive. At the McDonald's confrontation, Jidion tries to work around this trespass by having some of his broccoli alleys to put on his streaming equipment and go inside the establishment, which also leads to their arrest too. It's not quite as bad as having the minors search for Joe, since the guys who tried to take in the camera were also adults, or like young adults at least, but just pretty scummy to encourage your young and notoriously chaotic viewer base to risk getting arrested. So remember, guys, listen to your parents instead of tubers. Well, anyways, this obviously received a lot of criticism by the internet, and I'd recommend you watch Bloodspeth's video on this, because not only is it informative, but also because he's a big focus on today's video, as he's become a victim of Jidion's ego, crash outs, and insane fans, and this has basically led me down from talking about Jidion's arrest and his misconduct, had me fall down into a rabbit hole where I come to sense with the fact that Jidion just has like a lot wrong with him, and not enough people really bring it up, which ranges from not handling criticism very well all the way into his insane fans and mishandling of his sting operations. So, about a day or two after, Jidion boots up a stream, which literally lasts for 6 hours straight, where he proceeds to crash out and really badly attempt to defend himself over this arrest. It's so bad, in fact, that the VOD was deleted, and it's very hard to find, so this is a lost media moment, and I'm just going to be stealing some other tubers' clips from this stream. So at some point during this insane stream, Jidion decides to react to Bloodstiff's video criticizing him, and for whatever reason gets mad that Blood is rightfully criticizing him for endangering minors.
And I risked minors. Minors were at risk as well. Okay, so all I said was check the McDonald's, let me know. I mean, maybe Bloodspeth knows something I don't.
Yo, fan out and look for him. Yo, check the McDonald's and let me know. Yeah, check McDonald's.
So not only is he sending out children to search for a violent, aggressive, dangerous man, he's sending them to go inside of the same building and
No, that's you saying I'm sending them inside. Am I endangering kids by having them just tell me if they see him, let me know? When these dudes, like, Bloodspeth seems like a sheltered kid to me, and he doesn't go outside much. And he's just jumping to conclusions.
And he gets so mad that he calls up Blood on stream, and they kind of start arguing about it. Throughout the discussion and his reaction, Jidion literally repeatedly calls Blood a snake over and over through his stream, which is just like really insane, like something like a slimy snake or whatever, over criticizing him.
You wanted a
well, I guess that's how I segued into it. That is how I segued into it.
Exactly. But so you came in here with a plan all along. So you're a snake, man. Have a blessed day.
And also, for additional context ahead, Jidion and Bloodspeth have been in contact before, which began when Jidion learned about the internet predator Nova Online, or as I like to call the Pacific Northwest Poop Squatch. He reached out to him because Blood is a tuber who frequently covered the Chome, I'll talk more about that later, but if you're someone like me who's familiar with both of them, it made Jidion's crash outs on him on live hard to watch, which is why I've lost a lot of respect for him in this regard. While I was not tuned in when they were discussing Blood's criticism and the arrest, so I want to talk about what I was there for, which is how Blood brought up Jidion's EDP operation from a few years back. Although you can say that it wasn't best to go on this topic for this call, a bit off topic, it kind of connects to Jidion's overall lack of accountability for the trouble he gets himself and others involved in his shenanigans. So as a quick disclaimer, I like to remind you all that this comes based off of my memory with little clips on hand, so let's just take this as some alleged, hypothetical, and theoretical gossip in a way. Now first, let me just summarize Jidion's EDP sting, and I mostly got this criticism of the sting from Plubius, who is Blood's friend, and he was kind of like mentioned in this stream, which is where Blood brings up his points about the EDP sting. So anyways, let's break down what happened that made the sting go wrong, and the things Blood pointed out with Jidion.
She was a 15-year-old girl in the Discord. Jidion decided to invite EDP into his Discord server, I guess inside who is Jidion's Discord manager. They decided to come to an agreement that he was going to interview EDP like Jidion was going to. When
Jidion decided to host an interview with EDP, he had the fantastic idea of inviting the Cupcake Man himself onto his public Discord server filled with minors. And as expected, EDP made himself at home and found his victim Kyla, a 15-year-old girl. And you're thinking what Blood is thinking? He's pointing out Jidion's serious lack of care with inviting a notorious child predator into its ideal habitat. So yeah, child endangerment pretty much. I'm also not sure if Blood might have brought this up, but the fact because there's like so many people who are in Jidion's server, there's like a good possibility more minors were victimized by EDP than we ever knew outside of Kayla, because like it's not very often that grooming victims, especially from Discord, never speak up, which is also just pretty unsettling to think about. But moving on, after Kayla reports this to the server staff, either Jidion or one of his server staff instructed Kayla to keep talking with EDP until the operation actually took place.
Right, so then as time went on, we got more and more information, like the fact that they actually told Kayla, who was the 15-year-old girl who was like groomed or whatever, to keep talking to EDP weeks ahead of the actual sting operation, right? Or a couple days or whatever the fuck. I think it was like a week ahead of the sting operation. So when Kayla was being groomed, she actually went into Jidion's Discord server, talked to Inside, who was Jidion's manager, but essentially he told Jidion, and I guess somebody, I don't fucking know who, one of those fucking losers, decided to tell Kayla to continue talking to EDP, right? So not only are they just like taking advantage of this 15-year-old girl, but they're putting her in harm's way by allowing her to keep talking to the predator. And when I posted that video, there was a few YouTubers who like came at me and said, actually, that's really smart because they get more evidence.
And this is basically the second instance here of Jidion endangering a minor in the name of the predator catching. In a traditional sting operation, like the kind you see Chris Hansen did, where the police is involved in the capture's planning, if the predator was discovered when a worried parent reported about who the child was chatting with, police take full control of the victim's account from that point. So every chat after that is handled by a professional decoy to make sure the sting goes smoothly. All this move had done was causing more mental harm to Kayla by making her keep holding up with this disgusting person's behavior. And there's like zero excuse for why Jidion just didn't ask for control of the account to help plan the sting. There's also this thing Jidion brings up that apparently Kayla lied about EDP contacting her first, and instead Kayla went and contacted him first. Jidion implies that because she contacted him first, it ruins EDP's chances of being prosecuted. But I don't know anything about laws, but I don't think that's really what botched this operation, in my opinion at least. But again, this detail, we don't really know about the truth, and it's really a bit of a he said, she said situation, especially because there's no evidence to this. Partially because the EDP documentary still hasn't come out after all these years. And also Jidion, on the other hand, just hasn't been transparent about this botched operations details and has just been like crashing out. On the other hand, Kayla's videos on this does have a bit of random details that I don't really understand their relevance. And the editing is just really flashy for some reason, and I would have appreciated if it had some relevant evidence, like screenshots of her and Jidion's conversations, or even with like the team that may still be up. But maybe I'm just being too harsh on this since she was a minor when she made contact and all of this happened. So I want to give her some lenience with this, of course. Although I don't want to fully trust anyone here, only with this detail, We can obviously, given the outcome of the operation, she is very likely being truthful with what she claims in her video. So I'm hoping the full truth about this comes out someday. After this, I'm sure they talk about how the case was reported, which due to its poor handling like the first time, this stopped EDP from being arrested. According to what was said, Kayla supposedly already filed a report with the police in advance before the confrontation. However, in the video of the sting, Jidion, in his professional attire, can be seen calling Kayla, where she says she is currently at the station filing a report.
And I'm already here. I filed the report.
Yeah. Keep on filing.
Wait a minute. Didn't they already say Kayla reported the case in advance? What is going on? Jidion then starts mentioning Kayla, and based on what I understood he said, he kind of acts like she ruined and lied in the operation. And at this point, Jidion just abruptly hangs up his call with blood spec. So yeah, another amazing example of how Jidion perfectly handles being under pressure and criticism. Now, I was not there in the operation, but there's two possibilities here. Either Kayla lied about filing the report earlier, or Jidion straight up just thought reporting the day of the incident was a good idea, and the reporting ahead was a miscommunication between the rest of his team. The first one I think is not really possible, mainly because if you were under the impression the report was already filed ahead of time, only to realize it wasn't last minute, you would probably have some sort of like emotional reaction of sorts to finding out on camera at least, which Jidion did not have at all. And I think the second possibility is most likely because not only did Kayla say she was told to lay the report, based on Jidion's pred catching videos overall, I got the impression that no report is even filed beforehand. And also Jidion just doesn't know how to act professional and properly interact with the police. I think we've already got a good impression with how rude and annoying he can be with refusing to cooperate with law enforcement on the Joe stream. And with the body cam footage released, he just looks a lot worse.
You want to type straight up? Yep, sir. Can I ask you a question? No, sir, please sit. Foot in. I can't even fit in here. Get your foot in. Officer, I can't even fit in. Get your foot in. How are you going to arrest somebody that never even went on property school? Officer, I can't move. Go. I'm too big. Put your foot that way. Officer, I can't. I'm not trying to be. It is literally my body autonomy. I cannot. I just want you guys to know that once this case gets dropped, I'm going to get a constitutional rights lawyer, and I'm going to let you guys all have immunity, and you guys will be in the deposition.
Like, quit trying to argue with the police. Ever heard of the right to remain silent? And this, unsurprisingly, is how he behaves with the police during his pred catches a lot. You'd think he wants to be all respectful and like calm, build trust and respect with the police, since after all, maybe having a good relationship with law enforcement will help your predator catches get longer sentences. But now, we need to amp up the drama for content. This is how Jidion has approached the police and catches I've watched.
You're not gonna talk to a 3-year-old girl anymore? No. And you came to meet a 3-year-old girl?
There are some legal things.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Stefan, you're not gonna talk to 5-year-olds anymore, right?
No.
So what are we doing here?
So he has on his phone that he wants to get deleted.
Turn that off.
I've never been a fan of how Jidion talks with the police in his catches, which the first things he says to the officer's face being his "promise you're not going to talk to a kid again" catchphrase for the sake of content and, I don't know, hyped oral crazy moments. If I was an officer, I think I'd also just be kind of confused and annoyed if someone just did that. It's like I feel like I was just called over to like a really stupid prank. Coincidentally, as I was researching this segment, I actually found a good video by this guy called Himpleton, where he documents Jidion's worst stings. Not only does it confirm my guess that Jidion never bothers to ever report to the police before the confrontation, it also just shows the insane fan base Jidion has cultivated. Now listen, I'm not really someone who likes to blame the tuber's audience and behavior they attract on the tuber itself, but there are just some rare instances where a tuber is in fact actively cultivating and encouraging insane behavior in their fans, and I feel like Jidion's one of them here. In one instance, when a cop doesn't immediately arrest the predator on the spot, Jidion name drops him at the end of the video, which leads to many angry messages directed at this officer's department, and of which are clearly from his fans, as they mentioned Jidion, of course. Another instance is when a pred who is also a volleyball coach got caught. Jidion confronts the owner of this recreational center, who due to the fact this pretty much kind of happened online and like he didn't really know, you can't really be that mad at the owner. And even though it's actually implied the coach is almost immediately fired, Jidion just starts walking around the parking lot of the center, just showing like shoving the images of the really gross messages and images the creep sent to like the parents, and it's just like really weird and made the situation a lot messier for like the parents and the owner. And obviously the owner wasn't a fan and wanted him off the property, but as we learned last month, Jidion doesn't like being told that. Jidion tried to direct his anger on the owner of this volleyball club by dropping his name and business location until his fans contacted the prosecutor's office, which led to a lot of chaos and even kind of like a news segment where the office had to make a statement regarding this. And with the recent arrest, since Jidion is still firmly convinced he's innocent somehow, and his fans ended up flooding the local department with calls and angry messages, going as far to make false reports, as we learned that at the end of the body cam footage posted by Code Blue Cam. And it's just like wow, like even though Jidion eventually got the charges for him and his fans dismissed, like everything else that just happened until this point just really just puts a bad look for him. And I know like Jidion didn't really tell his fans to harass the local police station. It really tells a lot about the fan base Jidion has cultivated, especially when we look back at these last two cases. And when he brings this stuff in his response video, it's kind of just brought up as like a small annoyance to the rest of the issues discussed.
They're still calling them or causing them any ruckus or anything. Please stop. Do not do that on my behalf. Do not do that at all, man. You know, they're actually out there protecting and serving. And it's a quiet neighborhood.
I think I've seen do not harass anyone involved disclaimers said more sternly than how Jidion told his fans to stop literally harassing and making fake reports to this office just because they're doing their job. I also want to touch one more time on blood stuff, as not long after his call with Jidion, his xitter account got suspended all of a sudden. We know he's Nova Online's #1 op, but if the chum has said he wasn't involved in the suspension, which if he did, he would obviously be bragging about it if you're familiar with him. So this leads to the most likely theory that it's Jidion's fans, which if true, is just like another addition to the crazy fan base Jidion actively allows to grow. Now let's talk about some moments that happened on the months leading up to the arrest that aren't quite as bad, but they just still like really show the issues of him. So Jidion on stream a few times has done some calls with people online. There's some like controversy regarding like their predatory or really questionable behavior around kids, and a lot of these calls just end up being kind of chaotic and messy. You have like that call you had with Fibs, who's kind of like this animation meme in real life TikToker, and they were basically accused of having like kind of sus interactions with minors, and it's more specifically having weird role plays with kids she'd meet on Discord. She'd also had like a weird thing for self-harm and would admit to wanting to carve people's names on herself. However, Jidion considered her innocent, and from the stream clips, it doesn't look like he really properly looked into the message logs beforehand very well, and he seems to be missing like a ton of context. With the roleplays, it doesn't make much sense to think they aren't predatory. I'll be only a tiny bit lenient with this, only because I don't think Jidion isn't very familiar with the Discord role-playing meta, even though he probably should be for being a predator catcher, I guess. So as someone who allegedly used to know people into Discord online role plays, like regardless of age, a lot of them always end up escalating from like innocent stuff like pretending they're OCs or hanging out into like more deranged stuff, which is why no one should be buying the claim the roleplays of Fibs didn't escalate into inappropriate territory. And then overall, these roleplays are just used as a common grooming tactic preds like to use to lower the guard of their victims. And then moving on with the essay, this kind of reminds me of Birdie in a way. He was basically a cringe content creator that also had a thing for introducing self-harm to kids on Discord. I don't know how Jidion didn't see this as predatory. And a lot of grooming isn't just sexual texting. It also just involves trying to normalize horrible actions and emotions, and it's kind of a way to disconnect the victim from reality. And then next is also his call with Faithful Sheriff, where apparently Jidion was like supposed to confront him about his constant communication with kids on Fortnite. And yeah, this is pretty weird, and yeah, his server was also pretty weird, but I mean, everyone just treats him as a joke, I guess. However, it just ended up spiraling into some stuff about theology and how Christian works or whatever, and it's kind of ironic for Jidion to argue about this, considering he generally also kind of larps Christianity like this peanut. And then lastly, and what is probably the most well-known, is him investigating Nova. The last 4 years in the Chom's history has been extensively chronicled by various lolcow tubers in order to warn about this creature's predatory nature, which also includes, but it's not limited to, age playing, diaper maxing, gooning, and sympathy baiting to DoorDash bullshit for him. So when Jidion finally learned about the Pacific Northwest poop squatch and his extensively documented history via Turkey Tom's video, you may think that this would later become one of his top targets. However, for several months after this reaction, and the Nova is still online, and all that has really changed is that the Tylos have been alerted. Jidion had mentioned on stream about getting in contact with Nova for an interview. This this time thankfully without inviting him to his server, and he even said he would show up to his goon cave to confront him if he didn't respond within a certain time frame. But the most we got out of this was a kind of like a short call he had with Nova, where I think like they talked about Hulo, I think, and then they kind of scheduled up an interview, but we haven't really like gotten much about it since. And of course, because of the absolutely stellar fan base Jidion has grown, some of his fans had organized a takeover, which is more of a protest in front of his house. With the first takeover, outside of some funny clips, nothing too bad happened. However, in the second takeover, the protesters took it too far, as they trespassed multiple times into Nova's property and even set off fireworks in this street, which is illegal and extremely dangerous in Idaho. And for the sake of not getting accused of making stuff up, here's the clip from one of the protesters' TikTok live repeatedly bring up Jidion and some of his iconic catchphrases.
Jidion just wants to talk, Nova. Jidion, this is for you.
Fucking hell.
Nova, we just want to talk.
Oh my
This is out of respect for Jidion and all the minors
Jidion.
that you've tried to fondle.
This isn't me defending the Chom or anything. The thing is that all these dumb protests are going to misdirect police resources away from getting the Chom arrested. Like I said earlier, we may not like how the legal system works, but if we want to get like a desired outcome, we gotta play by the rules anyways. Overall, what started as researching into how Jidion endangered kids, got arrested, and had some horrible damage control and responses, has thrown me down a rabbit hole into really learning the degree of how Jidion handles criticism, deals with his insane fans, or actually ends up botching his sting operations and is actually not the person many perceive him today, and his wrongdoings are generally excused just because my predator catchers can't do anything wrong. Now don't get me wrong, Jidion has gotten tons of dangerous people off the streets, and I will give him that credit. However, the way he approaches stings can and has hurt the chances of people getting arrested, and as we've seen, had endangered others in the process. But anyways, that's all for today. If you enjoyed my ultra premium platinum quality content, please subscribe. I promise to always deliver this premium quality regardless of how infrequently I upload. Bye.